Hello, everyone. This is Mark Joritzma with North Dakota Family Alliance. I'm here today with a special treat. We are interviewing a legislator. We are interviewing Senator Diane Larson. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Mark.
And this ought to be great. Looking forward to finding out more about Diane, her perspective on politics, and her perspective on faith and integrating it with politics. So let's get going.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, assuming that folks out there don't know who Diane Larson is?
Well, I am a wife of over 50 years,
Oh, congratulations.
mother of two grown daughters, and a grandmother of four.
Excellent.
And each one is a treasure to me. And so I did work for 23 years as a youth worker
Oh,
at the Police Youth Bureau in Bismarck. And so I have a history of working with juveniles and helping them to get on the right track when they make a mistake. And it was a very rewarding career.
excellent. Excellent. So have you lived here your entire life? Are you a
I
native of North Dakota?
native. I was born in Fargo, and my
Mm,
family moved to Bismarck when I was in sixth grade. So I've been here since then.
okay.
The only time that I wasn't here is when I was at UND to get my degree.
Mhm.
I went to BJC for 2 years and then finished
Mhm.
at UND. And then following that, we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Oh, wow.
for a career opportunity, and we were going to just get rich. It didn't
I
work.
say, how did that
It did
work
not
out?
work out. That was. But I'll tell you what, we did get rich in other things. We
Mhm.
really grew together in our faith as a young couple. Then we had our first daughter, Becky, there, and we really became a part of a real dynamic church.
Mhm.
And we learned a lot of really valuable life lessons in that epic business failure.
Sometimes the best lessons are learned when you don't succeed, right?
Right. So that took 4 years, and then we moved back to Bismarck.
Okay,
And so
excellent.
we've been here ever since.
Well, we're glad to have you in Bismarck.
Thank you. I am too.
So, how long have you been a legislator?
I have. I did serve for just a 1 2 year term back in 1988
Okay.
until 90.
Mhm.
My kids were young at the time, and I decided that it really just took too much time, and so I chose not to run for reelection then. Some years later, I was asked to run again in 2012, and so I ran for reelection to the House in 2012, served 4 years, and in 2016 I was elected to the Senate, and I've been there since then.
Okay, excellent. That's quite a career. So, you've definitely been in the legislature for a while.
Yes, and I'm planning to run in 2024, and then that will be the end of my legislative career. So I'm hoping to get another 4 years in, and but then it'll be done. It'll be time, and I hope to be able to mentor some people along the way.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent perspective. We have a lot of younger legislators who can use the wisdom from someone who's been around for a while.
Well, I hope I have wisdom. I actually, Mark, every morning before I go to the Capitol, I make sure I read some scripture and I
Mhm.
ask God for His wisdom, which is far better than mine.
Excellent. That's a good way to start the day. So, what prompted you to become a legislator? What was the thing that happened?
Well, it was funny because I got involved in politics back before '88. I was a chief page in the Senate, and I was involved in political things. In fact, in college, I was part of the Young Republican group. The first time I got involved in politics at all, right then, and then so I was working on a campaign, helping my local legislators with their campaigns, and I got asked to run and be a running mate with Brent Winkleman.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh man, I can't do that. I can't do public speaking. I can't do any of that. I don't know. I don't know." And he said, "Okay, just pray about it." And so my husband and I prayed about it and decided, okay, we'll do it. And um, what happened was with that election, I was the only Republican elected out of our district.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually got more votes than Brent Winkleman, who was the one that had asked me to run. And so that night I said to him, I said, no, this is not why I ran. I'm going to resign and then you'll be the next vote getter. And he said, you can't do that. The voters elected you. And so I kind of got talked into it the first time. And I had a lot of help along the way. I was at an event one time, and Dale Sandstrom said, "Do you need any? If you need any help on your campaign, just let me know." And I said, "I do need help. I can't public speak. My knees will actually give way. I will not be able to do it." And he said, "I can help you with that." And so this was back in 1988, so there was VHS tapes. Went over to his house, and he had a camera set up and lights set up, and he said he had note cards, and he asked me questions, and he gave me pointers, and by the end of it I felt, then he took the tape out, we went into the living room and he plugged it in and he said, okay, see what you did here.
That's stressful, isn't it?
It was actually so helpful.
Yeah. Well,
And so now I feel that helped me to get past my total fear of the camera.
Well, you're doing well right now, so clearly you aced that.
Well, it was a journey, but it was one of the things I've learned. So thank you.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak on the floor of the Senate and in committees. For those of you who don't know, Diane is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee,
right?
A very significant committee. She'd probably be very humble and not necessarily agree, but it is. It's a very significant committee.
It is an important, we have a lot of important issues in front of the committee.
Yeah, particularly our type of issues.
Sure.
North Dakota Family Alliance issues,
right.
What sometimes get called social issues.
You've testified in front of our committee often.
Yeah.
And how did we treat you in our committee?
Very respectfully.
You know what? Yeah. The first day of my committee, that's what I told my committee members, is we will treat everybody that comes to the podium with respect. Whether we agree with what they're saying or not, they will be treated with respect.
Yeah. And I've seen that sitting in your committee, not just when I testify, but when others do who are, sort of antithetically opposed to what I believe and we stand for, and perhaps what you believe. But no, you're very respectful, and you believe in the process.
Well, it's difficult for people to get up and publicly speak about something that's important to them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not everybody is a professional lobbyist. Not everybody has the coaching that I had. Yeah. And I want to make sure that anybody that comes and has the courage to stand up and say what they believe in front of a committee is going to be treated with respect.
Yeah, that's excellent. We like testifying in the Senate Judiciary Committee, not just because you're the chair, but it is a very respectful place, and you take the issues very seriously. Yes. You don't take yourself necessarily too seriously, so that's good. That's the perfect combination for those of us who testify.
Thank you.
So, you already talked about kind of what you did outside the legislature. Yes. And how has your faith helped you as a legislator?
It has been the most central part of what I do, because in fact, let me tell you, one day we had a very difficult day. We had some very contentious legislation in front of us, and people were pretty riled up to come and testify to us. And it was a couple of days worth of it. And one of my committee vice chairs, Bob Paulson, leaned over to me as I was starting to gavel in, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Bob, I'm just weary." And he said, "Remember, this isn't your fight. This is God's, and he doesn't lose."
Excellent.
And it just reframed me again to just remember the battle is God's, it's not mine.
Yeah, precisely. And for those of us who fight as lobbyists or as legislators, and we do feel passionate about the issues, and sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. ultimately it's not up to us. We need to
Right.
be faithful, but yeah, but as you say, the battle is not ours.
The other thing that that faith played a part in is even my first year running, going door to door.
Mm.
Oftentimes, people would ask me, "Where do you stand on abortion?"
Oh.
And I said, "I am pro-life." And I thought, if that gets the vote, good. If it doesn't, then they shouldn't vote for me because I'm going to vote pro-life.
Yeah.
And so um, that has always served me well to speak the truth about what I stand for.
Yeah, you're unapologetically pro-life,
I am.
and we greatly appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that you are advocating for that in the Capitol as well. So the appreciation goes both ways.
So, what has been your favorite part of being a legislator?
The favorite part of being a legislator, I think, is all of the people that I have gotten to be friends with, that I have gotten to. Mark, I don't know that I would have known you. I don't know that I would have known Jacob. Maybe would have. He's friends with my grandson. But there are a lot of people and other fellow legislators that just my world of people. I get postcards from people, Mark, during the session, from people that I don't even know,
Really?
that say, "I'm praying for you." What a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing to know that I'm there doing the best I can. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing the best I can, and people are praying for me. Wow, that's humbling.
It is. And along the same lines, when we go to testify, one time I was getting into the room and there was a lady I recognized who agrees with our point of view on things. And I said, "Well, great. Are you here to testify?" She said, "No." She said, "I'm just going to sit in the back and pray during the entire testimony,
Isn't
during
that
the entire
wonderful?
hearing." It's like, wow, that makes a
Yes.
difference. Yeah, it really does.
And frankly, Mark, when things have been kind of contentious and I've seen you sitting in the room, there have been times that I've looked over at you and you're just, and I know that you're praying for the right results.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging.
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
Well, we're on the same side, and
Yeah.
we're trying to do the right thing and stand for pro-life and pro-family values. And thankfully, God is blessing our work, and certainly
Yes.
has this last session. And
Yes.
so that's very, very encouraging. Doesn't always go that way, but that's okay. We understand that. What bills are you the proudest in sponsoring?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because well, you probably any idea how many bills you've sponsored over the years? That's
Well,
probably
I
a
could
really
have,
unfair question.
if I'd have known you were going to ask me, I could have looked that up, but I don't, I really don't. I don't sponsor a lot of bills.
Okay.
Um, One I sponsored last session is one that the chief of police in Mandan asked me to sponsor,
Oh, okay.
because it helped. He said, "I think this is would help us with recruitment and retention of law enforcement."
Oh, okay.
And so the bill was to not tax uh, North Dakota income tax on law enforcement retirement income.
Oh, okay.
We did that for the military in 2019, and that passed last session for law enforcement.
Hmm.
And so I think that's an important thing, that we show support for those people who put their lives on the line to protect us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that was one that I was really happy to be able to get passed. I'm working on some new things for this next session.
Super secret. Wow.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, like, I have found out lately that we really, as a state and as a community, we're having a lot more violent felony offenders
Hmm.
than we ever have had. In fact, I met with our sheriff, Kelly Lieben, and he said, "Do you realize that there has been 4 shootings in Bismarck since April?"
Wow.
and it's been on the news.
Yeah.
But you know what? I I have become more and more aware of those types of issues. And so I'm working with some people to figure out some ways to resolve some of it.
Well, that's excellent, especially with your background with youth and working with law
And
enforcement.
public safety. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an important thing that we all depend on. We all just have been fortunate enough to be able to take for granted.
Yes. Yeah. Having lived in other places, we are very, very blessed in North Dakota. There are a
Hmm.
lot of places where you can have multiple shootings in one day and none of
Yes,
them make the news.
right.
Yeah. So, yeah,
I
we
don't want us to slip further.
no. Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the case.
Yes.
So, is there a session that really stands out for you that really, in some way, was different than the rest, either in a good way, bad way, either personally or um, more
Well,
broadly?
I suppose just personally, I suppose in 20, let's see, it would have been 17
Mm.
was the first year that I was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Okay.
It's a big responsibility. And so, especially that first year as chair of that committee, I had a lot more things I had to do. And I was taking over the chairmanship from Kelly Armstrong, who had been the chair before me. And so it was big shoes to fill. He's a smart man.
Yeah.
And so I suppose out of all of maybe that one, it took a while to kind of get my bearings and
Mm.
figure out how to do things.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So, how does the North Dakota legislature look today in terms of makeup and how it functions and so on, compared to maybe when you started or years ago?
Well, when I started, I was the only Republican elected from our district.
Hmm.
Now, the Republican values have spread across the state so much that in the Senate, out of 47 senators, only 4 are Democrat. That is a big change.
Yeah.
I feel like the voters are going more towards, okay, these are the values that I embrace, and that's how I'm going to vote. And North Dakota seems to be becoming more conservative instead of less.
And from
And
our yeah.
I think that's good.
Oh, absolutely. And from our perspective, what I noticed was that, especially with the last election, we got a lot of conservative, new, younger legislators
Hmm.
in both chambers,
Hmm.
and very much conservative and Christian
Hmm.
legislators. And
Hmm.
it was kind of a shift from those who were perhaps more on the less Christian side, or the
More
more
liberal.
liberal side,
Hmm.
to more conservative values. So yeah, you
Right.
see that tide turning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed it. It's different than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing.
I agree.
Yeah. And that's part of the I,
I think
yeah.
oh, there's a rooster right out there. Pheasants.
Yeah,
Pheasants right out
you'll
in the
have to
yard.
trust us. There's a pheasant out
Pheasants.
there.
Anyway, sorry. Squirrel? No.
See, Diane's a real person too.
So yeah, I think it's good that that people are voting their values,
Yeah.
and it's good that I think that we are becoming more conservative as a state instead of being drawn by some of the things that we see in some of the other parts of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this session was just kind of amazing from my perspective because, yes, we have a very conservative legislature in general,
Hmm.
at least the sessions that I've been there,
Hmm.
but it was just amazing the stuff that got through,
Right.
and not just through the chambers and by huge margins,
Right.
but also the things that Governor Burgum signed. And he may have his reasons for doing that, but the point is, they were signed into law.
Hmm.
And now we have a whole number of laws, part of the Century Code, that reflect our values and the
Right.
viewers of those who support North Dakota Family Alliance. And
Right.
so that's great.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing.
I agree.
Okay, so kind of close this off. Now I'm going to give you free reign here. You can talk about pheasants. You can talk about whatever you want.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is there anything that you want the people of North Dakota to know? Either about you, about the legislature, about the process?
Yes, there is. Thank you for asking me that question.
Yeah.
Um, I want the people to know that we are not like some people paint a bunch of crooks and liars and cheats. That is kind of like the rhetoric that we
Right.
hear sometimes. In fact, I've even heard um, jokes about that from the pulpit,
Really?
and it's not. I have high regard for the people that I serve with. They're people of integrity. They're people that are there to try to do the right thing for their constituents. And the lobbyists are there to help give us information. They're not going to change any of my views that are important
Right.
by their um, providing the information, but they are helpful for the most part. Obviously, there are some that I don't really listen to, but there are others like you that when you say this is a bill that's coming into your chamber next, and here's what it does, and here's what's you give me the background, and then
Right.
sometimes I've asked you, Mark, I've asked you, so what is the other side saying about this?
Mm-hmm.
And the good lobbyists can say, well, the opposition will say this,
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't catch me by surprise. Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Right.
So that you give both sides of the story,
Mm-hmm.
but then I obviously know which side I'm going to be on because you represent the things that I also value. And so the people that I work with, the legislators that I serve with, they're just like the regular population. You're going to have some that do stupid things. You're going to have some people that you wouldn't necessarily count as your best friend. But the majority are people of goodwill, of good morals, of good values and integrity, and I'm proud to serve with them.
Excellent. That's excellent. And I can speak from our perspective that the time spent in our legislature as a lobbyist um, has been eye-opening
Mhm.
for me. And I have to admit, when I went in, I kind of had some of the same feelings about politicians and
Because that's what we
politics.
see on the national
Yes,
stage
right.
being reported all the time.
Yes, we're inundated
And
with
so,
that.
yes,
And I was kind of surprised a little bit and pleasantly surprised. And at this point now, I've been through a number of sessions. I have the greatest respect for legislators. The days you folks put in are just excruciating. they're really
they're long
incredible.
days,
Yeah, they
yes.
are long days, and you have to do it for 4 months, and it's really intense.
And you have to stay focused and,
Yeah,
and learn backgrounds to things
yeah.
that you didn't know about.
Yes. And between
Yes,
sessions, they may not realize this, but between sessions, legislators actually are in interim committees
right,
and they don't stop working between sessions.
right,
And so it slows down, but it doesn't entirely let up.
right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
taking
Mark.
time out.
Thank
And
you, Mark.
um,
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
yeah, likewise. Look for you in the next session.
Thank you.